So I haven't even got dressed this morning. I just got up. I haven't took a shower, washed my face. I haven't done anything. I kind of like sewing when it's nice and quiet. I get up at 4, so it's nice and quiet in the house. And I'm just trying to get this done so I don't have to worry about it. I got most of my guild stuff done, which I was stressing about. And so now I can work on a couple other things that I need to do. I still have a guild challenge project I'd like to do, since I don't have any quilts to enter in the show. This is probably the hardest part, is trying to get this on the original quilt, because it's the the hexagons are different shapes. It's not too bad. I mean, she really didn't do a horrible job on it. I've seen worse, and it's really not that hard. But it is a little bit different than trying to piece the ones that I had squared up and then made myself. Oops. Thought you might be interested to see my process of finishing this hexagon quilt. So the corners are just a hexagon shape. I sewed this and then these, and it looks really weird, but what's going to happen is I'm going to cut these off, and this will be cut off, and then when I sew it on, it'll be straight, and then I just have to straighten out that side. So I'm getting ready to do my next one, and I have to lay these out so that I know where I need to sew them. So I'm just gonna lay it out like this. And then here's my next one. So I know that I need to sew this one like this, because it's a little confusing, because it looks like there's a big gap, but you know, that's all going to be cut off. So it confuses your mind, so you have to kind of wrap your head around it by laying it out. So I'm just going to lay that over, and then I'm going to start here. Okay, so I have my hexagons under my needle, and I'm starting on that side. So I'm just going to kind of line them up the best I can. So when you get to the edge, you can either stop and back stitch and cut it, and then take your next little triangle. This is actually easier. I've been sewing them on with the needle down, but this is actually much easier just to cut the thread. And then you can lay this where it's nice and flat, and then put your needle back down and continue on. You just take a little back stitch, and then we're going to want to stop right here at this seam. So I'm just going to lift my needle until I get there, and then back stitch. It's really not that hard to do these 6-inch ones. They're actually pretty easy. And then we're just going to lay it where everything's flat again. Like I said, this is much easier than leaving the needle down, which as the way I've been sewing them. So I think this is easier, works out better. Just trying to match. So these don't match really great because I had to trim the original ones, and they're not exactly the same size as the blue ones that I made. But it works. And see, it looks good. So when I was at the fabric store and I was trying to tell the lady what I was doing with this vintage quilt, she kind of thought it was odd, and I get that a lot. It's like people don't understand why you would want to save an old vintage quilt top, but I think they're beautiful even if they're not perfectly pieced, or not like the Hexigon one that I have on the bed, the pink one. That one was perfectly pieced, but you know, some of them are not perfectly pieced, and but I think whoever made them, I always think about them when I'm fixing their tops, and I wonder, you know, what kind of person they were, and I think they would like to see that they were finished, and they just don't get all messed up and sitting in the antique stores or wherever they're found and rotting away. So I use them, I quilt them, and I use them. I try to get ones that are in good shape so the fabric isn't falling apart, and I can use them after they're finished. And I have found some really, really beautiful ones. I especially like the cross-stitch ones. I think those are really pretty. But I've gotten some wonky ones too, but they turned out pretty good after they were quilted. So yeah, you have a long arm, and it'd be a good way to practice your skills on the long arm. And I don't feel bad about having to fix the top if it has problems. I mean, some of them I've had to take completely apart and fix. I have others that I just had to add a border or something so that it's useful, because it was either too small, or I had one that the border was messed up. It looked like I had gotten something on it. So I'd take the border off, and it looks beautiful now. So I don't mind, you know, having to do modifications to it. If somebody finds one of my quilt tops after I'm gone and they want to modify it and make it beautiful, I'm okay with that. So I know that there's some people that don't like that, but it's not going to get used otherwise. You know, if it's ugly or it's really badly pieced, or you know, the colors are just awful, or there's something wrong with it that you just don't like, you're not going to use it, and it's just going to sit there and rot away. So I don't think that's the answer either. Let me show you one that I am working on also. So this one was a bunch of these Dresden plates, and they were on this yellow fabric that was brighter than this yellow right here. And there's 30 of them, and they were zigzagged down really, really badly. I mean, some of them were like bunched up. It was awful. I mean, there's no way you could have done anything with it. So I took it off the yellow fabric. Well, I still have a few of them I haven't done. but I took them off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on these squares, and this is a piece of muslin, and then I'll put some SF101 interfacing on the back of them, and then put them on this muslin, and then did a blanket stitch around it. This one was a test, and I used 12 weight thread when I did this one, and I like the way it looks, but I think I bought some just regular thread. I'm going to try that on the next one, and then I will probably put some sashing between it, and then put them all together, and I'll make a pretty big quilt. I think they're really beautiful. They have a bunch of different types of fabric in them, and I mean, you can't duplicate that. Some of these are really cute, the fabric in there. So this is another quilt that was really, really ugly, and nobody, I mean, it was one big, huge piece of yellow fabric, and they marked it with pencil to try to get squares to put these in. It was awful. And I bought it for $5, and I got all of these, and I think it'll look really good when I get it finished. So I just got the interfacing, and I just need to iron the interfacing and then applique it down on each one of these, because I had done a test one where I tried to hand, applique. I was going to hand applique them down, but then it didn't look like a flower, so I'm just going to put a blanket stitch on them. But yeah, I wish you could have saw the yellow zigzag stitch that she did on this whole thing. I think she just didn't know how to do it, and the fabric was probably moving as she was zigzagging it down, so there was lots of pleats and folds in it. And on one of them, she had kind of pleated it and then zigzagged over it on one of the little plates here, and it was terrible. But anyway, I think they all look good. So I like vintage blocks, and if I find some vintage blocks that are unfinished and there's enough of them, I'll pick them up and I'll finish them also. Not that I don't have enough of my own quilt projects, but I don't know. I just have a soft spot for vintage quilts, I guess. Alright, something's wrong here. Oh, that was the last of that row. Almost. Don't mess up and try to sew it where it doesn't need to go. And this one is the last piece I got to put in, just this one, which is kind of weird because it goes up here, and then it looks like there's a bunch of empty space. But so this is the very last piece I have to do, and then I can sew it onto the quilt. I'm going to go ahead and trim the sides of these before I put it on. It'll just make it easier. And so I'm just lining up my ruler, and I'm going to cut it straight. So I messed this one up. This is supposed to be here, so I need to take it out and redo it. Alright, I'm just getting ready to sew these triangles on that I've finished, and I'll show you kind of what they look like. So here's what it looks like, and I just need to sew them on, and then this thing will be more or less square. I managed to get one of the borders on, and it's looking pretty good. This pretty big quilt, it'll be, I think, 86 by 90 something when it's done. So I think it's looking pretty good. It went from, being an unusable hexagon to a straight quilt, and I think it's really pretty. It's going to have some fullness when I go to quilt it, I have tried to iron some of it out. It is definitely not perfect in places. There's some pleating and some other stuff like here. But you're not going to notice it once it's quilted, and I think it'll be really pretty. And I think I'm going to use the same quilting pattern that I used on this one, which is just kind of like a meander with a rose. I think it's appropriate for the quilt. I mean, if I had enough time, I might custom quilt it, but I don't know. I don't think it needs it. And maybe I'll put it in the show under the vintage category. Anyway, a little challenging to get these borders on because this fabric right here wants to stretch a lot. Hopefully my borders aren't going to be too wavy when I get it on. I mean, I made them the size of the quilt I measured it 3 times. So we'll see. It's just that, when it's stretching right here, it can tend to make it a little wonky. Okay, I added this red border and I hate it. So it's coming off. Then I tried this white border. Don't like it either. So pulled it off. Should I say this is the last time I'm going to take this border off? This is it. So this is the 3rd border I put on this quilt. And I think this one's going to stay. Part of the problem is this stuff is a little bit dirty, so it's not real bright. Everything new that I put on is a little bit brighter, not as dingy, and maybe I'm, I don't know. But I think this one looks pretty good, so we're gonna leave it, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and quilt it.